Good evening and welcome to the finale of 31 Horror Nights 2024. It's October 31st, Halloween night, and tonight's movie is Cobweb. Fun fact, this was not originally the movie I was planning to watch today. I was actually planning on watching a different movie and changed it this morning. I'm not going to say what that original movie was because it doesn't matter, but I just felt like this was a bad choice and I wanted to find something more fitting for the final movie of this Horror Nights because I don't want to end with a stinker, or at least not a fun stinker. I really hope this movie doesn't end up just being horrible and boring. Knock on wood. Cobweb is a 2023 movie that not only has a lot of Halloween aesthetic, the trailer was filled with pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, it also speaks to a very common ingrained childhood fear, things that go bump in the night. Cobweb is about a little boy who hears knocking on his bedroom wall at night. And when he tells his parents about it, his parents seem very dodgy and shady about the whole thing, trying to say, oh, it's just a whole house. Don't worry about that. You have such an overactive imagination. I'm calling it right now. They set this up. They're trying to sacrifice their kid to something. I do know about the actress who plays the mom, Lizzie Kaplan. She was in Mean Girls and Cloverfield and other things that I can't think of right now. But otherwise, this movie seems to be relatively obscure. This movie does seem very fitting for Halloween, seems plenty spooky. I just don't know why it's called Cobweb. I don't remember seeing anything related to spider webs or spiders at all in the trailer. I can think of two better titles right now: Things That Go Bump in the Night and Knock Knock. Well, actually, the knocks always came in threes, so I guess Knock Knock Knock. So I'm very interested if at any point in the movie it's going to be clear why this movie is called Cobweb. I guess all I can do is watch it and find out. Yeah, Cobweb was kind of a weird choice for this movie's title. I mean, they do mention cobwebs at least at one point, but that is not really what this movie is about. However, I am happy I decided to choose this movie over what I had originally planned because I doubt the movie I had chosen prior to this would be as much of a Halloween movie as this one is. And it was also pretty good. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. The best part about Cobweb is its horror, which is executed great, and the biggest issues come from the story, which is kind of silly. The trailer did a pretty good job of misrepresenting what the tone and main conflict in this movie was. The trailer made me think that he was really scared of the thing that was knocking on the inside of his walls, and his parents were just neglectful, shady, and not helpful. In reality, the parents are the villains throughout most of this movie, and he's not really that negatively affected by the thing in the walls, at least not at first. Okay, I said the story was the main issue in this movie. That's might still be true, but definitely the one single thing that's the biggest problem in this entire movie is that it's way too dark. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you have a scene that takes place inside during the day and it's really dark, you're doing something wrong. And that's really ironic because in real life, I had a window in my room that actually made it difficult to see anything that was going on through a lot of the movie. So I had to make a little tent around my laptop with my blanket. I shouldn't have to do that. There were so many scenes in this movie that were just way too dark. But on the other hand, the idea of keeping things unseen was actually used to great effect when it comes to the horror. For as long as they can, they will not show you exactly what you're supposed to be afraid of. And even when the cat is let out of the bag, so to speak, they will still keep as much of it out of sight as possible and saving it until a reveal almost at the very end of the movie. The acting in this movie was pretty good. The child actor who played the main character, Pete, he was pretty good. I really liked Lizzie Kaplan's portrayal as the mother. She played the narcissistic, histrionic mother type. Basically, the type of person that you wouldn't even want to have any sort of contact or interaction with, let alone have that person be your mother. The father was played by Anthony Starr, and he is standard abusive dad. Except, I don't think he's an alcoholic. I don't remember that ever coming up in the movie, but otherwise, it fits the stereotype. There's also Miss Devine, who is Peter's substitute teacher. I don't really know why they made it a substitute teacher and not just his teacher. Maybe it's because the teacher would actually have experience dealing with those parents before. I don't know. She was pretty good. She was pretty likable. For the most part, this movie was almost like an improved version of We Are Still Here because when it was doing the horror, it was excellent, and the rest of the time I was kind of just waiting for it to get back to the horror. It is still better overall and has higher highs than We Are Still Here, in my opinion. I really don't have much to say about this movie besides the fact that it's way too dark without going into spoilers because most of my thoughts around this film concern its absolutely bananas ending. So I guess all I can really say is if you like scary movies, check it out. It is a pretty good Halloween movie. And prepare yourself for the fact that you're not going to be prepared for what happens in the end of this movie. If you're going to leave now, happy Halloween. Thank you for watching Horror Nights. And now I want to go into spoilers. The weird noises inside the walls get sort of resolved pretty quickly. Like pretty early on, he hears the voice of a little girl and she like talks to him. And the voice itself is not really giving him any issues. The issues come from his parents. The moment they even get the slightest inkling that he's hearing voices in his room, they freak out. And I swear to you, every single line that these parents say is this like weird, creepy foreshadowing. Like they could not have been less subtle about this if they tried. And I think this actually does contribute to what the movie is going for. The movie goes so hard on making you not trust the parents and know that the parents are up to something that it kind of allows you to be caught off guard with something else later. There's a point where the voice in the wall tells him that he needs to make his bullies afraid of him, and he interprets that to mean, I'm going to shove this kid who kept shoving me and kept tormenting me. And the kid falls down some stairs and breaks a leg. And this leads to him getting expelled. And they respond to that by grounding him. But apparently, in that house, grounding means locking him in the basement. The basement where the door is actually covered by a fridge. So they have to move a fridge out of the way to even open the door. And Miss Divine is able to catch on pretty quick that these parents are crazy. Like she actually like goes to their house to try to check on him and they won't let her, and he actually hears her and starts pounding and screaming, but apparently the sound of the dryer is able to drown it out. She still suspects that he's like trapped or he's in trouble, but she apparently can't hear it because of the clothes dryer. And if what happens later on in the movie is any indication of this, she did not immediately call 911 when she left the house. But whatever, there actually is one really good moment of subtly planting a seed without even me realizing that's what they were doing and having that pay off later. Because when Peter first starts talking about the voices in his room, the dad is like, oh, it's probably rats. We'll set out some rat poison. And when they're talking about it, he says, this kind of smells like cinnamon. He says, yeah, but it's poisonous, so don't eat it. Cut to multiple days of psychological child torture later, and it's Halloween night, and they're just sitting there in the table eating this absolutely disgusting looking soup that looks like the stuff that Oliver Twist wanted more of. And they said that they left the porch light off, but they got like a ring from the doorbell, and the mom went over there, heard the kids go trick or treat, and then yelled at them to go away. And that was kind of amusing. And then they start talking about how the soup is a little bit different from normal, and then suddenly the gears started turning in my head, and then they smelled it, and I was like, wait a minute, he's got to say it smells like cinnamon, doesn't he? And he does. So yeah, the kid Peter, he poisoned them because honestly it looked like they were about to kill him. Like I do not blame him for doing that, even if it was the voice in the wall suggestion. That was not something I'm going to hold against him. Not to mention the fact that the voice in the wall said that she was his sister and that they locked her away when she was born. And she also tells them that they killed a kid before and buried them in the backyard. And when Peter goes to investigate, yes, it is a dead body. There's a skull there. For some reason, even though we definitely saw her eating more of the soup than the dad is the one who keels over, vomits up black sludge, and dies first. And she takes a lot longer, both for symptoms to appear and for her to die. And there's one of those maybe she's not dead type of moments. And the last thing she says before she keels over is, don't let her out. And it looked like this story was about to wrap up, but we were only about an hour into the movie by then. So that gave me a moment of pause, like, wait a minute, there has to be more. I think that the intention of the way that a lot of this story was executed was to make you so focused on how horribly evil and sketchy the parents were that you never take a moment to consider maybe they did have a good reason to lock this thing away in their house. And he is told to get the keys because there's like a key ring and go to the grandfather clock in the master bedroom, move that out of the way, and unlock this little cubby door. And when he does, there is honestly one of the better moments I've ever seen in a horror movie. He opens the door, it creaks open and it's just black inside. And I was expecting a jump scare. I was expecting like a hand to pop out or something to scream and crawl out. But instead, you just slowly saw these two glowing white eyes appear. And then this big evil grin beneath it. It was kind of like Smile Dog. And that was one of the best scares I've ever seen. And again, even after that, even throughout the entire climax of the movie, because it's not even over, because the kid whose leg got broken, he got a bunch of his cousins and they all went into the house to, I don't know, break stuff with sports equipment. I didn't really understand their motivations all that well. And even as they are all getting killed in spectacular ways, they still do whatever they can to keep this thing out of sight. You see like little hints, you see little glimpses, but you never get a good look at this thing. And then we get the reveal that I personally thought was kind of silly. If I actually had to compare this twist to any I've ever seen in a film before, it would be Malignant, a movie that I hated. Considering what this, whatever it was in the walls, was able to do, I kind of thought that this was like a demon or like a witch or something, sort of like a Coraline situation, something that impersonated his sister in order to manipulate him into doing its bidding. And she does say that she did that, but apparently she actually is his sister. And whoever wrote the Wikipedia plot summary for this says that she was just a human born with birth defects. I definitely don't think that's the case because there are no birth defects I know of that can make someone that strong, that fast, or give them the ability to crab walk on walls and the ceiling. And even though the twist that this obviously supernatural thing is somehow not supernatural was still more believable here than it was in Malignant, it is still a worse explanation than if we had got none at all. I would have been totally content not knowing anything about what this thing is or how it got in the walls of the house. Oh, and by the way, the movie is called Cobweb because she says that she had to live in the walls of the house eating rats and cobwebs and being a feral child, basically. Maybe that's the explanation they try to give as to why she's able to do spider like things, but again, she could like crab walk from the ceiling. Maybe they changed this last minute because otherwise it would be a little too similar to Coraline, like a witch impersonating a family member with spider like characteristics. I've never seen Coraline, but I know that's the basic plot of The Other Mother. So otherwise, I can't really think of a logical explanation unless something just happened and now horror movie makers are terrified at the idea of having supernatural elements in their stories. I don't know how else to explain it. But again, even with this very confusing, very strange plot development, the horror is still top notch. True to form, we do not see her face until almost the very end of the movie, and it is horrifying. Eventually, Peter and Miss Devine, who finally did go back to try to help him and really did do everything she could to try to help this child, they are able to trap the sister in the like basically dungeon is just like a hole in the basement floor with like a grate that locks on top of it. Like, did this house come with that? Did they have that installed? Because if someone asked me to install that in their house, I would assume terrible things. But anyway, the two of them are able to work together to lock her back in that dungeon, basically. And she says, I will find a way out. I will haunt you for the rest of your life. Every night will be paranoid, wondering if you locked all the doors and windows and yada, 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 sequel bait. And I really would have preferred if after that they decided, no, we're not going to do that. You're powerless. You were in a hole. And then they just like put a running hose into that hole and then walked away. But no, they seem to try to set up for a sequel. This is actually a movie I've considered like saying is one of the best I saw all month. But later on, like throughout the day as I was thinking about this, the more I realized that this plot is kind of dumb. It took me longer to realize that than Malignant did. That was very immediately apparent how stupid it was. This one's more in the details. I'd almost say that this would be better as like a popcorn movie, one that you watch with friends and like laugh and joke about the whole time, except for the fact that the horror is excellent. Honestly, if you changed like the last 2 minutes of this movie, it would be significantly better. But even as is, it is still very good. The scenes where the sister is chasing everybody around the house and killing them is top notch. And that Cheshire Cat sort of reveal is absolute peak. I loved that part. This movie is interesting because it's like if you took the terrible idea behind Malignant and actually executed it in like the best way they could. It's still not a good idea, but this is executed so much better. This is an excellent Halloween movie and a flawed but still overall pretty good horror movie. There are parts of it that are really well done, really scary, and maybe other people will see the sillier parts of the plot as something to take the edge off. I don't know. I thought that was kind of distracting, but it still wasn't enough so to diminish what the movie did right. And with that, I am now finally done with 31 Horror Nights 2024. Happy Halloween, stay safe, and I'll see you later.